want you to imagine you have a long-standing client who has previously disclosed a gambling addiction. Their spouse doesn't know about it. Your client now contacts you asking to withdraw a moderate amount of money from their investment portfolio. They tell you it's for home improvements, except they're being unusually cagey about exactly what these home improvements are. And you've recently reviewed their bank statements, which show several large payments to online gambling companies. You strongly suspect that they've fallen off the wagon. Now, the client has capacity. It's their money. They've instructed you to make the withdrawal. So, the question is, what do you do? Hello, and welcome to SCQF Level 9, Financial Philosophy and Ethics. And if you're expecting me to tell you the answer to that question, I'm not going to. Not yet. Because the entire point of this qualification is learning how to approach questions for which there might not be a single objectively correct answer. You already know how financial advice works when there is a correct answer. What's the ISA allowance? How is a pension contribution treated for tax purposes? What does the FCA handbook say? Those are technical questions, but our gambling scenario isn't really a technical question. The client has capacity. They own the money. They've given you an instruction, but you also have knowledge about their vulnerability. You suspect the stated purpose of the withdrawal may be false. There is a spouse who might be financially affected by the client's behaviour. You have professional obligations. You have duties of confidentiality. You have the consumer duty. You have the client's autonomy. And potentially, you have the opportunity to prevent serious harm. Suddenly, what does the rulebook say isn't enough. Welcome to SCQF Level 9, Financial Philosophy and Ethics. Meet your textbook. This is your textbook. There are many like it, but this one is yours. This is your Charlene. It contains the core philosophical ideas you'll need throughout the qualification. You should read it, but the textbook isn't the qualification, and repeating things from the textbook isn't going to be enough at SCQF Level 9. Think of it as your starting point. It introduces you to philosophical and ethical concepts and explains exam techniques, strategies, assessment standards, and provides lots of example assignments. From there, I want you to go exploring. There are 3 concepts that sit underneath almost everything we're going to do. The first is epistemology, which is a wonderfully intimidating philosophical word for something surprisingly straightforward. How do we know what we think we know? What counts as evidence? How reliable is our knowledge? What's the difference between knowledge, belief, and assumption? And how confident should we actually be in the conclusions we've reached? Let's go back to our gambling example, we don't know the client intends to gamble the withdrawal. We perhaps have some evidence. We have their previous gambling addiction. We have their behaviour. We have their bank statements. We have their cagey explanation. And from those things, we've made an inference. But how strong is that inference? What evidence would change our mind? And at what point does suspicion become sufficient justification for intervention? That's epistemology. And once you start recognizing epistemological questions, unfortunately, you'll start seeing them absolutely everywhere. The second concept is applied ethics. Ethical theories are interesting, but we're not studying philosophy simply so you can sit in a pub and say, well, Kant would disagree, while sipping on a martini and filling the room with strawberry-flavoured vape smoke. No. We're interested in what happens when philosophical theories collide with real decisions. Financial advice is full of them. Should you facilitate a decision you believe is harmful? Should wealthy clients pay more for the same work? Is investment in an unethical company justified if owning shares gives investors influence over its behaviour? That is applied ethics. We take philosophical ideas and apply them to actual problems, and you're explicitly tested on this. In all your written work, 25% of your grade is attributed to formulating practical guidance based on philosophical and ethical analysis. Finally, we have metacognition, or thinking about your thinking. This may well be the most important skill in the entire qualification, because you have biases, and so do I. You have assumptions, and so do I. You have values shaped by your upbringing, your profession, your experiences, your politics, your culture, and the people around you. And occasionally you're going to encounter an argument that makes you think, that's obviously ridiculous. Good. That's exactly when I want you to stop. Why do you think it's ridiculous? What assumptions are you making? Can you construct the strongest possible argument for the opposing position? What evidence would cause you to change your mind? And, slightly more painfully, are you actually right? Your first assignment is creative philosophy and ethics, and I want to emphasize the word creative. Please don't assume that everything you choose needs to be explicitly about financial services. In fact, I'd actively encourage you to look beyond conventional financial planning material. Financial philosophy is everywhere. Music, films, television, games, advertising, technology, politics, pop culture. Anything that says something interesting about money, value, incentives, decision-making, capitalism, consumption, responsibility, or human behaviour can potentially give you something to explore. For example, take Papa Roach's Between Angels and Insects. It's essentially an angry anti-consumerist song about our obsession with money and possessions. And while nothing quite screams reject consumerism like selling branded t-shirts for $40, there is nevertheless an interesting philosophical idea underneath. What happens when accumulating wealth itself becomes an objective? Financial planning generally assumes that money exists to achieve objectives. Retirement, security, experiences, freedom, family, whatever matters to the client. But what happens when someone becomes very good at accumulating wealth without ever deciding what the wealth is actually for? Could successful financial planning actually contribute to an unsuccessful life? Now we have something worth exploring. Or take Pulp Fiction, which contains one of the cleanest examples of an absolute trust ever portrayed in film. While no paperwork was ever signed, the trust was still created and fulfilled. And it forces us to ask whether trusts are truly created by paperwork or by the settler's intent. Further, it highlights the importance of making trustee selection a key component of your recommendation. Or let's talk about licensed video games. Historically, taking a successful film or television franchise and turning it into a video game has produced some variable results, because having an enormous brand on the box can sell the game. I remember renting a game on the Friday and having my whole damn weekend ruined by Powerpuff Girls chemical extraction. Familiar name doesn't make the product good. The product is judged on its own merits. And there's an interesting comparison here with the network model in financial advice. A recognizable name can generate trust, inquiries, and sales. But ultimately, the underlying product or service still has to demonstrate value and quality. Does a large organization implicitly promise quality simply by putting its name on something? What happens when consumers rely on that reputation? And how much responsibility does the organization have for products or services delivered under its banner? We've gone from terrible video games to financial services ethics. That's what I want you doing. And this brings us to something extremely important: independent research. The textbook is your foundation. It is not the boundary of the qualification. Use the internet. Find academic papers, articles, books, speeches, and interviews. Find arguments you agree with, and, more importantly, deliberately find arguments you don't agree with. If all of your research confirms what you already believed when you started, you probably haven't researched widely enough. That is not research, but outsourcing your confirmation bias. The same applies to artificial intelligence. You can use ethical AI tools to help you challenge your thinking. In fact, I encourage it, but don't simply ask, write my assignment about how Terrifier 3 demonstrates the importance of IHT planning. Apart from the academic integrity problem, you've also managed to outsource the one thing this qualification is actually trying to assess: your ability to think. Instead, use AI adversarially. Tell it your argument, then ask it to challenge you, then challenge it back. Because AI can be confidently, spectacularly wrong, and so can you, and so can I. That's where epistemology and metacognition come back in. I cannot emphasize this enough. Present counter-arguments. If you write 3,000 words explaining why your original opinion was correct, have you really evaluated anything? Tell me why someone intelligent might disagree with you. Present their argument fairly. Don't construct a ridiculous version of the opposing position purely so you can knock it down. That's called a straw man. Give the opposing argument its best chance and respond to it. Maybe you'll defeat it, and maybe you'll modify your original position. Maybe you'll discover that the counter-argument is actually better, and that's fine. Changing your mind isn't losing. In philosophy, sometimes it's the entire point. Your second assignment is your specialism. For this assignment, you must choose one of 5 specialist areas. 1, not 3, not 2 or 4 or 5. 1. Not mostly AI with 17 paragraphs about Bitcoin. Choose one specialist area and explore it properly. And again, I don't want a technical textbook. I want a philosophical and ethical investigation. So if you choose crypto, perhaps you might ask, does cryptocurrency belong in an ethical investment portfolio? If you choose AI, should financial advisors reduce their charges to reflect the time and money saved through AI efficiency? If you're exploring business models and failure, To what extent is white labeling an investment platform potentially misleading? If you're exploring financial crime and regulation, to what extent are compliance requirements themselves ethical choices? And if you choose sustainable and impact investment, to what extent can investment ever be truly ethical? Those aren't prescribed questions, they're examples. Find something that genuinely interests you and then investigate it. So across both assignments, here's what we're looking for. We want to see independent research. We want to see different perspectives. We want to see counter-arguments. We want to see you using philosophical and ethical theory rather than simply describing it. We want you questioning the reliability of your information. We want you recognizing your own assumptions. We want you distinguishing what you know from what you merely believe. And we want to see your thinking develop. You're not being assessed on whether you agree with what you think I might believe. You're being assessed on whether you can build and defend a sophisticated argument. Which brings us to the professional discussion. 30 minutes, you, an assessor, and some of the most challenging questions in the discipline. We want you to use the knowledge and experience you've gained in assignments 1 and 2. We're looking for your demonstration of a polished thought process, starting with identifying the ethical tensions in the question, providing an analysis with counter-arguments, and formulating a conclusion. This isn't designed to catch you out, it's your opportunity to demonstrate that the work you've submitted actually represents your thinking. Where your answer could be improved, we might challenge your conclusion, introduce a counter-argument, or ask why you've chosen one ethical framework over another. We might ask what would make you change your mind, and that's why blindly outsourcing your assignment to AI is such a terrible strategy. Because eventually, someone can simply ask, why? And ChatGPT isn't going to be sitting in the room with you. So, let's go back to where we started. Your client has a history of gambling addiction. Their spouse doesn't know. They want money from their portfolio for supposedly unspecified home improvements. Their bank statement suggests that they've been gambling again. You suspect they're lying to you, but they have capacity. It's their money, and they've asked you to withdraw it. What should you do? Do you respect their autonomy? Do you intervene to prevent harm? Do you challenge them? Do you refuse to facilitate the transaction? What are your obligations to their spouse? What can you actually infer from the evidence? How certain do you need to be? Does vulnerability change the ethical weight we give to autonomy? Does your answer change if it's £500 or £5,000 or £50,000? What if refusing the withdrawal destroys the advisor-client relationship and they simply withdraw everything from somewhere else? What if you're wrong? So what's the right answer? I don't know. And that's the point. Let's explore this together. See you on the course.